Om Shanti Metta Shanti Om Namaste, and welcome to a mini micro Nugget of Zen episode. Today's Nugget of Zen is this. Now, before we start, I ask of you humbly, please, I beg, attempt your best to set aside all your assumptions, all your preconceived notions, all your established definition of things, and consider the idea I'm about to share with you on its own terms. What if, and there's a lot of clauses and contextual statements in my what ifs setup here. What if a Zen Buddhist living holographic cosmic mind manifestation thesis is Akram's razor closest to accurate in describing the cosmology of the living world around us? What if this place is not a place, but a living holographic rendering imaginatarium of a giant cosmic mind, which is itself an embryo within an enormous cosmic egg? Literally and metaphorically, a babe in its mother's womb, yet to be born into the reality it anticipates becoming alive in, something beyond our ability to describe in the languages that we use. What if all that is closest to the truth? And then what if there are no personified supernatural beings walking amongst us? There are no evil, gruesome demons. There are no mighty, wondrous gods, not fleshy cartoon comic superhero embodiments, not avatars here, any more complex or sophisticated than whatever human body you might call your own. What if the universe is fractal holographic in its functioning? What if it is fractal holographic in its architectural forms? What if all of that were the closest, most accurate jumble of words to attempt to even begin to describe what is going on here in this place of many places? That this embryo's mind is dreaming the dream of an infinity of lifetimes dreamt by the consciousness we might call the God of all gods. And that which, so what if all that, if then compound collection of ideas, if all of that then, perhaps might we not update our discussion we have about all of these things and the ideology that rules our thinking and behavior? Because if God is not some cartoon being living in the sky, living on top of a mountain, and if the devil is not some cartoon avatar person with horns on his head, living in a pit, living in the center of the earth, living in some place that is too dark and murky to find as part of the universe. But all of these things in some allegorical, metaphysical, metaphorical way are instead fractal, holographic, frequency-based, infrastructural, energy, consciousness beings. Part of the way the cosmic egg womb baby mind dreams up the fractal holographic solid state matter from nothingness to begin with. That all things are the duality of yin and yang, light and dark, good and evil, not versus and. Is it up versus down? No, friends, it is up and down. And even though our language may be slight and slender and small, no matter how fancy and nuanced it pats itself on the back of being occasionally, i.e. in the age of Shakespeare, not so much today, or in the words of scientists at all, this thing is beyond language. But imagine if all of that were true. Then what is there to be done? Surely no more butchering of each other for mindless profit in either power or monetary compensation should ever be necessary again. Knowing thus these theses all to be one entangled mess of quantum metaphysics and spiritual probability waveform function manifestation, then we know we ought not blame the devil, for it did not make us, the victim, do it. But we must recognize that we externalized that which is essentially an integral and inseparable and inescapable part of ourselves. This body avatar, as it is, this flesh and bone that feels so real that if I punched myself, I could cause it pain and breakage, right? But why would I inflict such violence on myself? No need other than to fuck around and find out and know, and or because of pure dysfunction, perhaps some trauma. And this being the case, that every I am person, if you have ever thought to yourself, I am this and I am that and everybody else is not these things, then stop and join me in the meditative contemplation of this yin-yang duality, singularity of the world. The Yeshua, the Christ, is not here to save you or to protect you or to pull the strings behind the stage, or perhaps it is, but it is you. For does he not say, in no matter which translation or edition of the Bible, it still survives, ye amongst you will do what I do somewhat better. Some verbiage like that. We'll go doing a special extra deep dive episode about that. What if, my friends, you understood, not knew, not believed, not bought and are contemplating, not bought into blindly with blind faith, bobblehead nodding and acceptance, but knew, tangibly, intimately, undebunkably, knew the way you know the inside of your own shoes and socks, that the things we call Christ, the things we call Satan, are not out there waging a war using us as pawns, although in some ways, it is somewhat useful as an allegorical, metaphorical thought tool to think of things that way, but rather those beings, those tendencies, those polemics, those polarities, those energies are currents in the very bloodstream of all that is life, like up and down. No matter where you are, no matter how you're situated, no matter how you analyze it, no matter what you view it from, there are always two ups and downs. Your individual perspective up and down, whether you are the camera of science, observing a reality without interruption, or a being lost in the woods, a person, a flightless bird, whatever you are, you have a sense of up and down based on the tippy top of your skull, where your crown chakra does indeed tangibly reside. You don't need to believe in your crown chakra. If you openly abdicate and allow the filters to fall away, you will intermittently at first, maybe only very slightly at first, but increasingly and increasingly be able to sensate, to feel the trends and vibes and churnings and silences, for at times they are miraculously not there to be palpated for fun, of the chakra system. As so, these things are seemingly intangible, yet so sublimated, so subtle, and so integral that you could call them architectural functions. Without them, the human body avatar would not sustain life the way it does now, the way we know it, the way we've always experienced it. Regardless of our verbiage about chakras, whether we call them chakras or energy ball balloons or whatever you want to call them, they are there the way clouds form when the conditions mandate that they form and function as clouds function within the living, breathing system of interlocked and interconnected systems of many systems that is the atmosphere, that is the environment, that is the living, breathing womb planet that we have disgracefully abused and toxically disabused and traumatized for the last 300 years, if not longer, if not perhaps before in a different way, in a foolish way that maybe backfired and nearly killed us all, but we survived. Who knows? But what if all of that made sense, not because I told you so, but because one could, in one's own way, without words, seek within, commune with the Yeshua light body polemic center pole of singularity beingness that is the God or goddess, or whatever language you want to appoint it to, that is the light behind the light you know as your I am, the central point of your being that you are like, this is what I am. I see the world from this place. Immediately in like 7 dimensions, rhetorically behind that, a little maybe like 45 degrees up, and I think slightly to the left, at least in my case, there is another collection of chakra points, let us call it, another assemblage of the iterants of self-body selves of a different order, of a fleshless, operational, necessity, like it's absolutely baseline necessary for life to exist. Weeds and plants and shrubs have this. The Christ and the whatever, the demiurge, if you want to call the demon, or the daemon. There's many words, there's many label systems. Some of them have been really accurate, some of them less so, some of them been mish and moshed, some of them have been inside out, some of them have sort of upside down and backwards, some of them are so contrived that they've become meaningless. Organized religion, increasingly, is no longer about guiding ourselves with the community of elders that understand towards our own centers, where we can then tangibly communicate, and experience all of these phenomena. Today's Nugget of Zen, friends, is you are indeed your own lens of perception for the very godlike entity that is the subject of perceiving, the receiver of the perception, whilst also simultaneously being one of the many subjects or objects of being perceived. Your body, flesh itself, is something you perceive around you, encasing you, providing you, guiding you, and perhaps even communicating to you, for they are themselves their own microbiome of an infinite array of systems of interconnecting, interlocking systems that are the very flesh, cell, body avatars, which have their own cognitive, meta-spiritual cognition and cognizance and self-awareness systems that we can not really understand, but converge with. When we go with the flow of our own bodies and hear the chorus of it feeling like just the right thing to do, with just the right angle, with just the right inflection, that we could not have triangulated or mathematicated beforehand. That is when we listen to the chorus of the wordless body hive mind state. That semi-autonomous, in and of itself self-aware, gaming body avatar is a being unto itself, which we are in as the higher mind that operates the thought box and the sentence argumentation, logistic tools and swords and whatnot. We are a higher order of its lower order, and it is a lower order of our higher order, and our spirit, our soul, our over self, our Hashem, and our many tiers of spiritual aggregate consciousness collective architectural beings that we sometimes call our guardian angels, there's names and labels for it in so many ways and so many conceptualizations. These beings, these things, even the demons, even the very place that we might have considered the origin of the conceptualizations of heaven and hell, they are not out there somewhere to be experienced. They are part of us. And they indeed sort of warbly become a manifestation of out there for us and the body avatars playing in the simulation, which is not a dead simulation in a box made by some other way better living thing that is more alive than we are in the simulation, but by the baby brainchild imaginarium of the womb, the infant we are becoming, that is a highest order being which will be birthed or come out of its egg, if you will, in some unfathomable epoch in the unexperienceable time beyond. And together we can commune in that experiencing of these things. These things theoretically might exist, and arguably should be, if the theory is accurate in all of its variable components, should be independently experienceable by someone putting in the effort, testing, mixing and matching, and playing with the private, wordless, and almost ruleless, and so please be advised, be wise and thoughtful, and do a lot of research first, private mental spiritual alchemy of self, mind, mask, healing, and abdication. These words have been selected wisely for those prepared and willing to receive them. Look within and listen to them often before moving on to the rest of this show. This has been today's Nugget of Zen. I say to you, Namaste, my friends. Blessed day. Remember, the game is about being good humans to ourselves and to one another. If there is a game objective to this bizarre experience we call quote-unquote real life, I propose to you spiritually, intellectually, and scientifically, it might be this. Amen and namaste. May you grind away and level up to the best of your understanding and proceed with or without others telling you which path to take, for ultimately, the game is quite uniquely the path we create for ourselves. Om Shani Menashanti Om Namaste. Peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart, that you may share the fruit of that blossoming.